to Who Wrote That Up For You, a daily podcast that shines a light on the American justice system and its role in empowering the powerful to take from you. The justice system is the only branch of your government where an individual, rather than the collective, can make the system act for you. It puts power in the individual's hands, but it's broken and being used against you at a time when you need it most.
And welcome to Who Wrote That Up For You. I'm Sonia Ebron, co-founder at Courtroom 5.
And I'm Deborah Sloan, the other co-founder at Courtroom 5.
Delightful show lined up for you today. In a few moments, we will speak with Bonita Torres at ICU Investigations, operating out of Houston, Texas area. Bonita is a private investigator in the area and does some really exciting work, particularly around undocumented persons. And so we're excited to speak with her in a few moments. But before we get there, Deborah, what is on your mind today?
What is on my mind is litigation financing. People are talking about for low-income people, Americans, litigation financing because, of course, we all know that most people can't afford a lawyer, and there are people that are talking about some kind of fundamental changes that need to be made in order for people to basically get a lawyer. In fact, that's their solution: get a lawyer. But so they've introduced this litigation financing thing. But I think personally, what would make that work is for an organization like there are litigation funders and organizations that help people fund poor people who can't handle their own cases, who can't handle cases because they don't have a lawyer and can't afford one. So there are litigation funders out there. So I'm in support of being able to, as long as it's not harmful to poor people, litigation funding to from whatever organization can provide a lawyer to people that need things for fundamental things like eviction cases, or losing your children, or even deportation, which is something we're going to talk about today. Just be able to fund that or have someone fund that for you.
I would love to see. I appreciate you bringing that up because I would love to see some of the donors, foundations and that sort of thing get more involved in supporting unrepresented people. I think the for-profit litigation finance space is unfortunately primarily for plaintiffs. That's the way they get their rewards, right? They take a piece of the rewards of a lawsuit against other people. And yet, as you mentioned, the vast majority of people who need a lawyer and can't afford one are defendants in cases. And so there is no financial reward for them simply being able to defend themselves. It's a really, really difficult problem. But there are some solutions. We just have to have the will to be able to make that happen. Yeah. Fantastic. I appreciate you bringing that up. At Courtroom 5, we believe the courts belong to the people, in particular to the people who use them. And we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. So if you are in court without a lawyer, or you need to sue someone and can't find a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com. Try a limited version of our services for free, and we hope to provide some relief for you there. At this time, I want to welcome to the show Bonita Torres at ICU Investigations, a private investigator in the Houston metro area. Bonita, thank you for joining us on Who Wrote That Up For You. Fantastic to see you. Bonita, what got you to becoming a private investigator? What's your background?
Well, my background was really in HR, human resources. I had a situation myself where I was a litigant. Something happened at my job, and I found myself without a job, without insurance, and without an attorney, and I had to sue somebody. So that's what got me interested. I went back to school, became a paralegal. I also got my license as a private investigator. I'm also a notary. I've also taken mediation classes, and I'm also a process server. So I took all that and I said, I want to do something with this. And I started ICU investigations.
I love it. I love it. The lived experience, I think, is just so important in the fields we end up practicing in. So, really glad you're able to turn that negative experience into a positive here and
I
be able to
certainly
serve
have.
people.
Yes. I came 360 with that. I made that terrible experience and I turned it into something good.
That's what
And
it's
now I'm
about.
self-employed. I've learned a lot. I'm educated, and now I can move forward.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, then tell us about your agency. What kind of services do you provide at ICU Investigations?
We
And
do
what kinds of
surveillance.
clients do you have? Mhm.
I have all kinds of clients. I have private clients, I have corporations, I have insurance companies, I work for attorneys. Most of my clients are insurance and attorneys. I do a lot of criminal investigations, I do surveillance, I do missing people, location, um, locating witnesses, and also, well, of course, I'm a process server, so I serve process.
Excellent, excellent. If you would, then tell us about the types of work you do for, say, an insurance company client. What would they be looking for?
An insurance company, I do a lot of PI work, which is personal injury. They're in an accident. The client is in an accident. I go out to the scene. See what happened, take pictures, look for witnesses. If there are any businesses that might have a camera that saw the accident, or if there was anybody in the business that I'm looking for a witness, and I pull the police reports. I go out and I take pictures of the scene of the accident. I do open records, and I interview the client. If the client got hurt, I interview the client. If there was a witness, I interview the witness, and then I type up all my reports and I send them in.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then on the criminal defense side, if you could share a typical case there, what sort of work is involved?
Okay, so criminal defense for me, it just depends on the case. So let's say we have a unfortunate SO case. I get a lot of those regarding children, and it's very unfortunate. So the law in today's world, because of this Jessica's law that they passed, it's really hard for somebody that has an alleged claim of SO. So I go and I interview. If the victim is willing, I will interview the victim. And if
Tell us what SO is. I'm sorry, just in
sexual offense.
sexual offense. Yes. All right.
Uh-huh. And so if the victim is willing and they're older than 18, then I'll go talk to them. If they're younger than 18, then I have to seek permission from the parent. And
Oh,
sometimes the parent lets me interview the child, sometimes they don't. So it's a give and take. And then I go and I interview the defendant and I get his or her side of the story. And then if there's people around that were there or that knew either or the defendant or the plaintiff, I go and I knock on doors, I hit the sidewalk, and I start mapping everything out, finding all the witnesses of why that person said what they said. Did this really happen? How did it happen? The who, what, where, when, and why is what I go and I look for. I also do background checks on both of them just to make sure, because I have a lot of cases where these girls say, oh, this happened, and they did it to somebody else. And they're like going along trying to get some kind of compensation, for making up a claim like that.
yeah.
And it's unfortunate that there's a lot of innocent men that are locked up because of that Jessica's law. But then again, by the side of the coin, there's a lot of guilty ones there too. So you
Yeah.
really got to do your homework and ask the right questions.
And what is Jessica's law?
Jessica's law is when you get when a young girl makes a statement or a claim to the police or whatever, you're automatically guilty. Because there was a case, and I think it was in Florida, if I'm not mistaken, where this little girl was, I think she was kidnapped or something from her house. And she made this no, the guy killed her. I'm sorry. The guy killed her. She was kidnapped, he raped her, and he killed her. And then they passed that law about these men, that go out and they hurt young children. So automatically, I mean, some of men that the cases that I get, they're in jail. Some of them post bond and they get out. So it just depends how far and how much information you give the police for them to make that determination to arrest you, and then you go up to the judge and see if you're going to get bond or not.
Got it. Got it. Absolutely. In the Houston area, I suspect all along the border and in many other places in the country, we have a peculiar problem of undocumented persons and
Oh
some of the
yes.
challenges that they have in getting evidence and making claims, right, to protect themselves. Can you talk a little bit about the work you do in that area?
Well, in that area, I had a case here where this young lady who was a U.S. citizen and her boyfriend, who is a U.S. citizen, not was, they're both U.S. citizens. Only the young lady's mom was an undocumented. So the boyfriend and the girlfriend got into a physical altercation. Like uh, he physically hurt her in front of the mom, in front of the mom's
Hmm.
house, and she was only defending herself. And during the altercation, she ended up, I guess, ripping his necklace or something, and she cut his eye. But she was defending herself. So when the police came, the girl got arrested and she got charged with domestic violence. And I told her, I said, her mom, I said, but you were a witness. You saw that she was only defending herself. And she's like, no, I don't want to go to court. I don't want to go to court because I'm undocumented. Well, her daughter got charged because mom was too afraid to go and give a statement to the court because she was undocumented. And it's very sad that we have a lot of cases like that. And I'm not, maybe Houston is just not the only state in the United
Right.
States. We have a lot of states and there's a lot of undocumented people, and they're all falling victim to other people because they're too afraid to go to law enforcement and say, hey, I was a victim. They're afraid that they're going to be deported or they're going to be thrown in jail, or whatever's going to happen to them. But you have to stop and think, you were a victim. You have to let somebody know, because if these people make a victim out of you, they're going to make a victim out of everybody else. So there's got to be some kind of stop to that. And what I tell a lot of my clients, I get a lot of clients like, oh, I don't speak English. It doesn't matter if you don't speak English or not. There's a lot of bilingual people out there. I speak Spanish, and I get a lot of Hispanic customers, and that's the I hear that story all the time. But I'm undocumented. I'm undocumented. That doesn't matter. You were a victim, and you need to go to the court, or you need to let somebody know, hey, you know what? I was a victim, and they're too scared. They're just way too scared.
How realistic is that fear? I mean, are the courts doing anything to protect people who are undocumented from deportation? Is there something that can protect them?
Well, I'm not sure if there's anything that can protect them, but I've gone to a couple of court and I've been with undocumented people. And the court is just like, okay, you were a victim. We're going to handle this as a crime, like the theft or, domestic violence or whatever, something happened to them. I'm not saying that the court is going to turn and look the other way. What I'm saying is that the court is going to look at the crime first versus whether they were documented or undocumented at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Got it. I know you also have some specific expertise around fraud cases or cases of fraud and investigating those. Can you share just some of the experience that you have there?
I had one case, and this was a really funny case. I think it was like right after Hurricane Harvey. I'm sure you all heard about Hurricane Harvey.
Yeah.
So there was this gentleman that had bought this $50,000 painting, and his house got flooded. So after the flood and everything, he made the claim. So I drive out there, and because I'm Spanish and I'm bilingual, I saw these workers outside, and I walked up to them and I told them in Spanish, hey, can you tell me, about this house, who lives here or whatever? And they're like, oh, the man's not here anymore. He just left. I said, oh, okay. And they were working inside the house. And I said, well, can I come in? And he's like, yeah, you can go in there, whatever. So I walked in there and I saw where the painting had been. And I asked one of the guys, and I said, what was on here on the wall? And he said, oh, I think it was some painting. And I said, "Oh, did you see it?" And the other guy's like, "No, I didn't see it, but my friend did because he used to do landscaping for him. And before the hurricane, he saw him take the painting out."
Oh, oh,
I was like, "Can you repeat that?" Let me turn my recorder on. And I was
yeah.
like, "Really?" I said, "How many days before the hurricane did he take the painting out?" He's like, "Oh, I think it was like maybe 3 or 4 days." And I was like, "Are you sure?" And then he was like, "Oh yeah, we saw him." He said, "I was cutting the grass with my friends and we saw him because the painting was really big." And I was like, "Thank God I'm bilingual."
That's funny. I imagine that you run into those circumstances a lot,
All the time.
particularly. Yeah, yeah,
All the time. That helps me when I'm doing surveillance or I'm following somebody because I guess it's my appearance or whatever. Nobody likes to look at the help. We're going to be honest about it,
right,
okay?
right.
That's my best defense. Dressing like the help.
That's
I get in and
fantastic.
out of places. I talk to the help and they give me the 411. So I've got a leg up on everybody else.
I love that. I love that. Many of the investigators we talk with here have a law enforcement background, and a lot of folks who are being surveilled can recognize a gumshoe or somebody with a law enforcement background a mile
Yep.
away. It would
Mhm.
be much more difficult to recognize, as you say, the help
Oh,
as
I'm
someone
telling you,
who's surveilling them. Yeah,
I get in and out of places like you will not believe
I
because
can well
I
imagine.
blend in. I blend in. So if I'm going to go somewhere to like a business or a hospital or whatever, I'm going to dress the part.
Yeah,
I'm not going
yep.
to go in there dressed like gumshoe, like how you say, in a suit and tie and everything. I'll be made out, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you got made right there. Forget it."
That's right. That's
So I
right.
try to look as the worst and as the bum that I can look, or
Yeah.
the help, and that gets me in and out. And it's non-threatening, and that's how I get information. That's how I get my target all the time. Because number one, I'm bilingual. Number two, I'm a woman, very
Yeah.
non-threatening.
Right.
And then I dress the part. I dress like any Joe Blow down the street, and they're going to say, "Okay, well, she's not a PI," and they're going to talk. And that's how I get my target because I speak to them and I speak to them in Spanish on their level. Oh, they start singing like birds. And I have my recorder in my pocket. Thank you.
Yeah, I bet you're good at that. Fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, let me ask you then, do you find yourself having to testify in court in some
Yes.
of these cases? I imagine you
Yes.
don't show up as the help in those
No.
circumstances, right?
I'm going to be honest. I didn't even want to come on this with, like with my face. I was going to put
Right.
on like glasses and everything, but I thought, I got to be honest here. I
Yeah.
try not to take pictures and stuff like that because I do surveillance.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my God, what if they see me? But I'm like, okay, well, I haven't done surveillance in a while. And, when I do surveillance, I don't look like me. I look like
Right.
somebody else.
Exactly, exactly. What's been your experience testifying in court? Is that I don't imagine you're intimidated by that process anymore, but what do you find yourself having to testify about?
Well, I usually, if I'm going to testify in court, I work with the attorney, like maybe usually like a month out before the trial, so I
Yep,
can be prepared. That way I can know what kind of questions or anticipate what kind of questions they're going to ask me. At first, I was scared. Oh, I was terrified. I was so scared. I remember one time being in court and I couldn't see the screen. It was like too far away, and I was so embarrassed because the judge said, "Ma'am, the screen's right in front of you," and then I hadn't seen the screen in front of me, and I was so embarrassed. He's like, "It's okay." Well, then after that, I was like, "Okay, I think I can do this." So yeah, I prepare myself. I work with the trial attorney, and then the day that it comes in, I already know, or at least I have an idea what they're going to ask me, and I know how to answer. And what I usually do when I answer is I always look at the judge first, then I turn my head and I face the jury and I answer the question facing the jury so that they can see my facial expression and they can see, yes, that I do know what I'm talking about. And not that
right.
I'm just like, how they say, hanging on by a thread or whatever, but I try to be as knowledgeable as I can before we go to trial, because I don't want to look like a fool. That's embarrassing.
For everybody, no kidding. I can't imagine you do. That's fantastic. And so I believe you probably also serve people who are not represented by counsel. Is there a difference in the way you work with unrepresented people versus working through attorneys?
Yes. When I take somebody as pro se, my first question to them is, what is your budget?
Yeah,
And that's the
yeah,
first thing out of my mouth. Because
yeah.
you know what? If I can't help them, if they don't have that kind of money, I don't work for free. I don't think any of
Right,
us do work for free.
right.
So I try to work with them. Be honest with me. Tell me what your budget is, and I'll work with you. If you can't afford me, then I'll send you a resource to somebody else. I'm a bridge to other people. I'm not those PIs that, oh, okay, you can't help me, too bad. Bye. No. If I can't help them or they can't pay me or whatever, I'm willing to send them to somewhere else and say, hey, you know what? These people can help you.
Hmm. Fantastic. What kinds of requests do you get from pro se litigants?
A lot of divorce cases, a lot of child custody cases. I've had a couple car accidents. But most of them are really divorce cases where they want a
Hmm.
divorce, they don't know their rights, they've been thrown out of the house, or the husband, the wife, or whatever took their personal belongings, community property. They don't know how to get it back, and I'm like, "Hello, community property, that's yours too."
Right. And so it's collecting evidence that can help them in the litigation. Do they generally know what evidence is necessary or know what matters
No, they
in their
don't. And
cases?
this is the funny part about it, because I always get this question: is there, and not talking bad about other PIs. I don't want to say that, but there's certain things that a PI can do, and there's certain things that a PI can't do. And when you start saying as a PI, oh, I can get bank records and stuff, that's not true. If that was true, everybody and their brother would get that. You
Yeah.
have to get a subpoena for that. And so I tell them straight up off the bat, because they're like, oh, I need bank records and he's hiding money or she's hiding money or whatever. No, you need to get a subpoena from the judge to do that. The bank is not going to just say, oh, okay, because X, Y, and Z has an account and you, A, B, C, are not on that account, they're going to give you that information. No. And I find that they go to other PIs and other PIs tell them, oh, yeah, I can get that information. And I'm like, no, you cannot. That's high, high confidential information, like Social Security, banking records, IRS records, even medical records. I mean, you got to get a HIPAA form for all that. You have to have some kind of accountability to get that. And these other PIs are saying, oh, I can get that. Now, I don't know how they're doing it, if they're doing it legally or illegally, but I know the first thing out of the judge's mouth is going to be, how did you obtain that information?
Right, right, right. Exactly. I imagine there's lots of evidence you can collect that never shows up in court, but leads you to stuff that can.
Oh, yes,
I
yes.
suspect as well. That's fantastic. And so, is there any advice you have for unrepresented people? About the way they would request or use your services?
If they were okay, any advice, do your homework. There's so many free resources. There's the law library. Okay, that's one. And there's legal aid. That's two. There's Catholic Charities. That's three. Do your homework. That's what I'm saying. If you don't know how to use a computer, go to the library. There's a lot of people there at the library that are bilingual and speak all kinds of languages, and they can show you how to get on a computer and how to start looking for those free resources.
Fantastic, fantastic. Bonita, I'm going to share your website on the screen for our users. Bonita Torres at ICU Investigations out of Houston, Texas. That's icuinvestigations.org. So if you are in need of private investigation services, please check out Bonita. Thank you so much for joining us again on Who Wrote That Up for You. Continued success in your career. It looks like you've got a lot going on there. So congratulations and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And remember one thing, aquí se habla español.
That's right, exactly. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
that. All the
Bye
best.
bye.
Oh, fantastic.
That's pretty
Fantastic.
awesome.
That is great.
Okay.
It's great to know that that these services are available and so friendly and just available to people, and just willing to help and wanting to see the best in folks. I'm just always happy to speak with, particularly PIs. I've been enjoying
Yeah,
these conversations a great deal. So
I
that's
love to see a
fantastic.
good PI too.
Yes, I'd love
Yeah.
to be one. In my next life, I'm gonna be one. It's just no doubt. Looks like there's so much fun going on there.
Yeah.
That's great. So, Deborah, what's the answer to the last quiz, and what do you have teed up for next?
Okay, the last one was a true or false. A motion to dismiss is a response to a complaint. That is true. I think in the last, in one of the more recent shows we did, the question was a motion to dismiss is an answer, and that was false. But this one, it's true. It is a response. That means you still have to answer, but at least it's a response. And then today's quiz: which of the following is the most accurate statement about interlocutory appeals? Is it A, an interlocutory appeal is an appeal of a final order? B, an interlocutory appeal is an appeal of a non final order? C, an interlocutory appeal should only be filed at the end of a case? And D, an interlocutory appeal allows a higher court to review a motion. So is it A, B, C, or D?
Looking forward to seeing the answer to that. Fantastic. Thank you for that. Well, that's all we have for you today. As always, thank you for joining us on Who Wrote That Up for You, and we will see you next time.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.